You're traveling through the unknown, a journey beyond the corners of reality, where the shadows whisper and the chill runs deep. Welcome to the dimension where your deepest fears are given form. This is The Midnight Mystery.
Welcome to The Midnight Mystery. This episode is called R.P.S. Rock, Paper, Scissors, The Bloody Royale. In each episode, we delve into the shadowed corners of our existence, bringing you tales of the eerie, the uncanny, and the downright terrifying. From the realms of the supernatural to the depths of the human psyche, no stone is left unturned, no dark secret left hidden. As the clock once again draws near midnight, prepare to embark on another adventure into the uncanny, the eerie, the horrifying, the midnight mystery. They call me Leo. It's not my real name, but it fits the persona I've cultivated. I'm a gambler, an observer, and if you listen to the right people, a damn good player. But, as in all things, I keep to myself, comfortably ensconced in my isolation, always the eye on the game and never the heart in the fray. Until that day. A letter, no return address, just an invitation. The words were sparse, the intrigue, boundless. You are invited to the game of your life. Come if you dare. And a location was given. An underground event it called itself, which meant nothing to me at the time. Oh, what ignorance that was. Piqued, I remember studying the paper, worn and weathered. The script, a flowing, curvaceous font, seemed anachronistic on the otherwise unremarkable parchment. Anonymous, inscrutable, and entirely intriguing, I found myself in a quandary. This could be a setup, a trap, something to trap the cunning fox. Yet the prospect of the unknown tugged at the adventurous part of me. The part that relished risk, the thrill of a high-stakes gamble. You really gonna go for this, Leo? I mused aloud, my voice echoing softly in the emptiness of my apartment. The silence stretched, inviting me to reconsider, but the allure of the unknown had taken root. I decided I would go. Just as I slid the enigmatic letter back into its envelope, I noticed a faint emblem on it. Rock, paper, and scissors intertwined in an intricate design. A shiver passed through me. Something about it was unsettling. Or was it the thrill of the gamble? It was difficult to tell. I stood, my gaze lingering on the envelope. Guess it's time to up the stakes, isn't it? I murmured to myself, a smirk pulling at the corners of my lips. Unbeknownst to me, the game I was about to play was more life-altering than any I had ever played before. The day of the event, I found myself standing in front of an unremarkable door, in an unremarkable alley. The cool night air was a stark contrast to the anticipation simmering within me. I took a deep breath, pushing the door open. Little did I know, once crossed, this threshold would alter the course of my life forever. Walking into the dimly lit corridor, the door slammed shut behind me, the echo reminding me of my irrevocability of my decision. I remember whispering to myself, "Game on, Leo," and thus, my descent into the game of life and death began. Little did I know then that the game I was so eager to play was not just about outsmarting opponents. It was about survival. It was the ultimate gamble. And in this gamble, the stakes were dangerously, fatally high. Through the dimly lit corridor, I emerged into a vast, cavernous space, its darkness interrupted by scattered pools of light. A crowd, as diverse as could be imagined, milled around nervously, each face etched with curiosity, uncertainty, fear, a bizarre reflection of my own apprehension. Tattooed bikers, sleek-suited executives, anxious teenagers, and hardened elderly men. The diversity was bewildering. An odd sense of unity hung in the air, the collective unease binding us together. An electric current of tension humming beneath the surface, threatening to explode. Quite the gathering, isn't it? A voice startled me. A man stood by my side, his face partially hidden in shadows. "Seems so," I replied, the curiosity evident in my tone. Before he could respond, a deep, resonating sound echoed through the space, silencing the nervous chatter instantly. All eyes turned toward a grand, ominous stage where three figures draped in red, blue, and green cloaks took center stage. One of them, the figure in red, stepped forward, their voice filling the room. "Welcome, players, to the ultimate game of chance and strategy. Rock, paper, scissors." A murmur rippled through the crowd, the mention of the innocuous game seemingly out of place amidst the grim setting. I shared their confusion, my eyebrows furrowing in anticipation of a punchline. However, the figure continued, the playful note in their voice replaced by something far more sinister. Here, the stakes are higher than any game you've ever played. Here, the loser does not walk away with a bruised ego or a lighter wallet. Here, the loser forfeits their life. A collective gasp echoed through the crowd, the chilling words seeping into each of us. My heart pounded, the reality of the situation crashing down on me. This wasn't a joke. It wasn't a game. It was a deadly trap, and we were the prey. I think there's a misunderstanding. I'm not... I stammered, turning towards the exit, but two hulking figures blocked the way, their steely gazes clear. There was no escape. The man next to me spoke again, his voice hushed. "Welcome to the game, Leo. I hope you're good at rock, paper, scissors." As the implications of his words dawned on me, my mouth went dry. The cloak-clad figures began explaining the rules, the crowd hanging on their every word. I stood there, lost in the sea of horrified faces, the roiling dread in my stomach echoing their fear. What had started as an intriguing adventure was quickly morphing into a nightmare. A deadly game of chance and strategy. Rock, paper, scissors, life, death, and the haunting chasm in between. I could feel the weight of the decision I had made, the reality of my situation slowly settling in. But there was no way out now, only through. Through the game, through the fear, and hopefully through the other side of this nightmarish ordeal, alive. A hush fell over the crowd as the first pair stepped onto the stage, their faces pale, hands trembling. We watched, the intensity in the room growing with every passing moment. The figure in the red cloak raised his hand, and the game began. "Rock, paper, scissors," he chanted, his voice reverberating through the tense silence. It happened in an instant. The man to the left threw scissors, the woman to the right, rock. "No." The man's whisper was barely audible, but in the suffocating silence it echoed like a shout. The realization in his eyes was chilling. A collective gasp cut through the room as the consequence of the game materialized. The gruesome reality of loss played out in front of us, leaving an indelible image seared into my mind. The crowd was horrified, the cruel reality of our situation hitting us all at once. A perverse sense of thrill rippled through the room, a stark contrast to the dread that clung to us all. It was the sickening allure of a gladiator's arena. "God!" The words slipped from my lips, my gaze transfixed on the morbid spectacle. Beside me, the same man from before murmured, "Hell of a show, isn't it?" There was no humor in his voice, just a hollow acceptance. I turned to him, the reality of our situation washing over me. "We're next, aren't we?" "We all are, eventually." His eyes, hardened by what I could only guess was years of seeing too much, met mine. I looked at the stage again, my stomach churning, but alongside the fear was a spark, a tiny ember of resolve. I was here, stuck in this nightmare, but I was not going to let this game be the end of me. I had faced down worse odds. I could face this. "Guess we better get good at this game then," I muttered more to myself than to him. He looked at me, a glint of something that might have been respect in his eyes. "Yeah, guess we better had." As the next pair was called, I clutched my hands into fists, determined. I'd come here a gambler, intrigued by the thrill of a new game. But now I was a player in a deadly game, my own life the stake. But if there's one thing I knew how to do, it was play the odds. So, as the next round began, and the crowd watched in horrified silence, I started planning. I wasn't just going to play this game, I was going to survive it. The odds might be against me, but I'd faced worse. And Leo the gambler never backed down from a game, no matter how high the stakes. Round after round, the game continued, and so did the relentless march of fear and desperation. It was a dance macabre, one I was unwillingly a part of, but a part of it nonetheless. My survival hinged on understanding my opponents, on reading their tells, their fears, their desperate need to live. One threw rock when cornered, another leaned on scissors when nervous. It was all patterns, predictable and repeating. The same desperation, the same fear, just different faces. I wasn't just playing a game, I was playing against human nature itself, and fear. Fear is the most telling opponent. Every win, though a relief, carried a bittersweet taste. It was a reminder of the price my survival was costing others. But there was no room for guilt, not in this game. Guilt was a luxury I couldn't afford. During one of the breaks, I found myself standing alongside two others, both as out of place as I was. Molly, her short hair graying and scars telling stories of battles past, and Arjun, barely in his 20s but with eyes too sharp for his age. "Been watching you," Molly's voice, rough and worn, broke the silence. "You've got a knack for this." "I'm just good at reading people," I admitted. The look she gave me, equal parts admiration and caution, told me she understood. Arjun, his voice surprisingly steady, chimed in. "You think you can keep it up? Keep winning?" "I have to," I replied. "It's the only way out." We fell into a contemplative silence, each lost in our thoughts. It was Molly who broke it. "What if we help each other? Increase our chances of survival?" I turned to look at her, considering. It was a risk, trusting others, especially in a game like this. But it was a calculated risk, one that might improve our odds. I studied Arjun, his determination evident. He was young but cunning, a necessary ally in a game like this. "All right," I agreed, extending my hand. "We help each other. We survive this." They each shook my hand, an unspoken pact made amidst the chaos. And just like that, we were no longer just individuals fighting for our survival. We were a team, a unit against the tide of desperation. As we returned to the game, a newfound sense of resolve pulsed within me. The game was still lethal, the stakes still high, but now I had allies. Together, we'd face the deadly game. No longer was I alone in this dance of death. We entered the next round, our alliance our secret weapon. The crowd's murmurs, the cloak-clad figures, the fear. It was all background noise. My focus was on the game, on the patterns, and on the pact of survival. It was no longer just about outwitting opponents. It was about surviving, about ensuring that my allies survived. It was about turning the tables on this monstrous game. And I'd be damned if I didn't give it my all. Because Leo the gambler never backed down from a game. And now, he wasn't playing alone. Round after round, life and death decided with the simple toss of a hand, an eerie rhythm emerged. The game was a twisted symphony, a dance of desperation and determination. As I navigated through it, something began to nag at me, a subtle undercurrent of unease that went beyond the looming threat of death. There were patterns, barely discernible but consistent, in the decisions of the game masters. They seemed arbitrary, but their eyes would linger longer on certain players, a fleeting glint of recognition flashing before they met their gruesome end. "Why'd they pick him?" Molly asked, her voice hushed, following my gaze as another player was called forward. "I don't know, but there's a pattern," I replied, my gaze focused on the game masters. "There's something we're missing." Arjun, his eyes reflecting the glow of his laptop, interrupted. "I think I found something." In the dim light, he showed us his screen. Amid the complex data streams and codes, 3 symbols stood out: a jagged mountain, a flat hand, and a pair of cutting shears: rock, paper, and scissors. "Where'd you get these?" I asked, squinting at the symbols. "They're embedded in the system running this event, hidden layers deep," Arjun explained, his fingers tapping restlessly on the keyboard. "It's as if they're controlling the game. What if the game isn't random? What if it's rigged?" Molly's eyes widened at the implication. I need to watch the next round carefully," I murmured, my mind racing. As the next round began, my focus was razor sharp. I wasn't just watching the players, I was watching the game masters, the crowd, the symbols. And slowly things started falling into place. The way a game master's hand twitched when certain symbols were played. The way the crowd reacted. The fear in the players' eyes. It was all connected. "Rock," I muttered under my breath as a player stepped up, his eyes darting to the game master. Sure enough, the man's hand formed the shape of a rock. The realization sent a chill down my spine. We weren't just fighting against luck and strategy. We were pawns in a game far more complex, far more twisted than we'd imagined. "Arjun, Molly," I said, keeping my voice steady. "This isn't just a game. It's a setup, and we're caught in it." Their eyes met mine, understanding and fear reflecting in them. But beneath it all, I saw the spark of determination. We'd been dealt a bad hand, but we weren't out of the game yet. This was our fight, our survival. Now we had a deeper understanding of the game, its secrets unraveling. But with each revelation, the stakes got higher. The game was rigged, but the question was, could we rig it in our favor? As the game continued, a grim resolve settled over us. We were deeper into the rabbit hole than we'd ever been, but there was no going back. It was do or die, and we had every intention of doing whatever it took to survive. As Arjun delved deeper into the system, it began to reveal secrets darker than any of us could have imagined. Huddled around the screen, the glow illuminating our determined faces, we looked on in horror as Arjun decrypted a hidden manifesto. This is not just a game," Arjun muttered, his fingers momentarily frozen above the keys. "This is some kind of ritual." The file revealed a chilling history. This macabre event, this game, was an ancient ritual, traced back centuries to a clandestine society that believed they could manipulate fate itself. The winners were not merely survivors but chosen ones, destined to carry out a path predetermined by the society. Chosen ones? Molly's voice wavered, her usual stern facade cracking. For what? The manifesto isn't clear, Arjun admitted, his brow furrowed in concentration. But it says something about fate. That the winners are destined for greatness or something like that. I could feel the blood draining from my face, a sickening sense of dread coiling in my stomach. I wasn't just playing a game. I was a part of a ritual, a pawn in a plot much larger, much more sinister than I could have imagined. I looked at Molly and Arjun, their faces reflecting my horror. This went beyond life and death, beyond survival. We were a part of something ancient, something powerful. "What do we do now?" Molly asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. "We have to get out," I said, my voice firm despite the fear gnawing at me. "We have to escape." "But how?" Arjun questioned, his gaze on the file. "This isn't just some random underground event. This is huge." "We're not going to figure it out just sitting here," I said, pushing off from the wall. "We need a plan. We need to win this game and then find a way out." We were no longer just players in a game. We were pawns in a centuries-old ritual, a plot we couldn't fully understand. But we weren't just going to lay down and let it consume us. We were fighters, survivors. As we moved back into the throng, our new understanding weighing heavy on our shoulders, the game seemed even more ominous, the stakes even higher. But we had one thing we didn't before. We had the truth. Molly's hand shot out, the air suddenly electric with tension. Paper. The opponent smirked, a cruel glint in his eyes, and revealed his throw. Scissors. The crowd erupted in twisted cheers. A wave of horror washed over me as Molly was led away, her usual stern expression replaced with a resigned calm. I couldn't tear my eyes away as she disappeared into the dark corridor, the door closing with an ominous thud. The echo of that sound was like a gunshot, a deadly punctuation to the horrifying reality of our situation. Molly was gone. The ex-soldier, the woman who had stood by us, who had planned and strategized and promised to fight until the end, was gone. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I just stood there, staring at the closed door. Arjun's hand on my shoulder was the only thing keeping me grounded. We have to get out of here," he muttered, his voice shaky. "Damn right we do," I agreed, my voice barely a whisper. "Molly didn't make it out, but we will. We have to." We retreated to our corner, each lost in our thoughts. Molly's loss had shaken us, reminded us of the harsh reality we were facing. We were playing against the clock, and it seemed we were running out of time. We needed a plan, and we needed it now. We couldn't afford another loss. Another friend dragged off into that dark corridor. I looked at Arjun, the young tech genius who had become an unlikely companion in this hellish nightmare. "We need to figure this out, Arjun," I said, my voice grim. "We need to beat them at their own game." He nodded, a grim determination in his eyes. "I've been trying to crack their system. There's a pattern, a code maybe." "Then let's break it," I said. "Let's tear this game apart." And so we began, our minds working in tandem, a desperate race against the clock. We had lost Molly, but we wouldn't let her death be in vain. It was inevitable, the moment I'd been dreading. The game had whittled us down, and it was just Arjun and me standing across from each other, our fate hanging in the balance. Our eyes met, a mirror of fear and determination reflecting back at me. "Arjun," I began, but he held up his hand to stop me. "Don't, Leo," he said, a wry smile tugging at his lips. "We knew it could come to this. but knowing and experiencing were two different things. The crowd fell silent, their anticipation a palpable entity in the room. I clenched my hand, my heart hammering in my chest. Survival instinct battled against friendship, a war waging within me. Arjun's hand shot out. Paper. And then it was my turn. My hand shook as I formed the dreaded symbol. Scissors. No! I yelled, but it was too late. The crowd erupted in cheers, a chilling soundtrack to my worst nightmare. Arjun was led away, his eyes meeting mine one last time, a message in them. Survive. The door closed behind him, and I was left alone amidst the cheering crowd, a hollow victory ringing in my ears. The taste of victory was bitter, tainted with loss. My friend, my ally, gone in the blink of an eye. My knees buckled, and I crumbled to the floor, the crowd's cheers now a distant echo. Arjun's death was a brutal wake-up call, a chilling reminder of what was at stake. I was the last one standing, the last obstacle in their twisted ritual. But I wasn't going down without a fight. I picked myself up, my body moving on autopilot. I was on my own now, the weight of my survival and the memory of my friends fueling my determination. I could feel the eyes of the crowd on me, their anticipation, their excitement. They wanted a show. I'd give them one. With every step towards the center, my resolve hardened. I would survive. I would escape. For me. For Molly. For Arjun. This was no longer just a game of rock, paper, scissors. This was a fight for freedom, for defiance against a fate they thought they could control. I was not a pawn. I was not a player in their ritual. I was a survivor. And I had a game to win. The final round. It was me against the reigning champion. A menacing figure that towered over the crowd. His cold, piercing eyes met mine, a silent challenge. He was the executioner, the gatekeeper of the twisted destiny they had set for me. But I wasn't going down without a fight. You're good, he acknowledged, his voice as cold as his gaze. But this is where your luck runs out. I offered him a grim smile. We'll see about that. The crowd held its breath as our hands shot out in unison. He smirked, confident, revealing his throw rock. I felt time slow as I unfurled my hand. Paper. The room fell into stunned silence. The champion's smirk faltered, confusion etching onto his features. I had done it. I had beaten the unbeatable. I don't lose, he stammered, taking a step back. His gaze darted around the room, the crowd parting from him as if he was a contagious disease. His confusion turned into panic, his hands flying to his head as he let out a blood-curdling scream. I watched in disbelief as his body convulsed, his screams echoing around the room. And then it happened. His head exploded, showering the room in a grotesque rain of gore. The crowd recoiled in horror, their cheers dying in their throats. I stood there, frozen in shock, the chilling reality of my victory sinking in. I had won. I had survived. I had beaten them at their own game, at their own ritual. But at what cost? The room spun around me, the faces of the crowd blurring into a sea of shock and horror. I felt a chill run down my spine, the weight of my victory a heavy burden. I had won, but I had lost so much more. But as the reality of my situation sank in, I found myself fueled by a newfound determination. I was the survivor, the disruptor, the rebel, and I had a mission to complete. I was going to escape. I was going to tear their ritual apart, expose their secrets. I was going to disrupt their plans, defy the fate they had set for me. As the echo of the champion's final scream faded, an unfamiliar sound took its place. Sirens, the chilling melody of justice closing in. Police stormed the venue, their shouts and commands cutting through the stunned silence. "The game is over!" a voice boomed, echoing around the room. "Everybody down on the ground!" The game masters, those orchestrators of this gruesome spectacle, were nowhere to be seen. They had vanished, like ghosts, slipping away in the chaos. Relief washed over me, followed quickly by the cold grip of exhaustion. My legs gave out from under me, and I collapsed onto the floor, my vision blurring at the edges. Strong hands gripped my shoulders, pulling me upright. A face swam into view, a beacon of sanity in the madness. "You're safe now," the police officer assured me, his voice a comforting balm. But even as he led me out of that hellhole, even as the nightmare ended, I knew something within me had changed. I was no longer the naive gambler who had walked into the trap. I was a survivor, a fighter, a disruptor. In the aftermath of the gruesome game, the memories haunted me. The faces of those who had fallen, Molly, Arjun, the rest of them, appeared in my dreams, a constant reminder of what I had survived. But alongside the trauma, something else had taken root, a spark of defiance, of determination. I had survived their game, but others might not be so lucky. The game masters were still out there, free to continue their sadistic ritual. But I was going to change that. "You all right, son?" a grizzled detective asked me, his eyes sharp beneath bushy brows. "No," I admitted, a ghost of a smile on my lips. "But I will be." His eyes softened, understanding. "What will you do now?" I looked at him, the spark within me flaring. "I'm going to hunt them down." The detective's eyes widened. "You sure about that?" "As sure as I've ever been," I replied, my voice steady. "I survived their game. Now it's time they play mine." With the knowledge I had gained and the resilience I had discovered within myself, I set out on my new mission. A hunter tracking down his prey. No one else was going to face the same ordeal, not if I could help it. The game was over. The hunt had begun, and this time the game masters were the ones being hunted. I hope you enjoyed our episode. I'd like to extend a heartfelt thanks to you, our brave listeners. Your presence in this shared journey into the unknown is what fuels our stories. Your fascination is our motivation. Did this episode send chills down your spine? Leave your comments, share your thoughts, your theories, your own midnight mysteries. Your feedback is the beacon that guides us through the uncharted territories of our stories. And if you haven't already, remember to subscribe to our channel. By joining the Midnight Mystery family, you won't miss out on a single chilling tale. As a subscriber, you'll be the first to know when a new episode lurks around the corner, ready to pull you back into the shadowy depths of the unknown. This is the Midnight Mystery signing off, leaving you with a simple reminder. When the clock strikes 12, fear the silence, for that's when our tales come to life. Good night, Midnight listeners, and remember, not all who wander into the dark are lost.